I'm dreaming of a red Christmas with loads of lovely Pinot Noir. Because there will be no Christmas without vino, so get right down to Pick and Pay.
All right, so the singing is dreadful, but but the message is there. It is time to stock up for Christmas on plenty of wine. And needless to say, our friends at Pick and Pay have got plenty for you. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine for the last time, at least live in 2021. We'll have some more recorded episodes before the year is out, but this is our last live show of what has been a long and busy and different and challenging and interesting year in which South African wine has once again proved to be both resilient in the face of innumerable challenges and also outstanding, both in comparison to wine from the rest of the world, but also by its own very high standards. And so that is reason to smile as we come to the end of this particular year. And what are we doing to finish off the show? Well, if you watched on Monday, we had part one of our best of 2021 with Melu Lambert and Bubbles Highland joining us. We called glimpses of Joseph Dafana Luvontezo was with us, and Stephanie Cartwright from Saint in Johannesburg. They gave us their best wines, best experiences of the year. And we're going to be doing the same with a fairly heavy-hitting quartet of wine experts this evening. Joining us all the way from London on his third lunch of the day, Greg Sherwood will be with us just a little later. Also, Wikus Human, who is the group head sommelier for Marble and however many restaurants they have this week. I tend to lose count. The great Tinashe Nyamudoka, the Zimbabwean wine superstar, who's involved in all manner of projects and remains one of our finest wine palates in the country. And we will also be catching up with a very special guest who I will be bringing in from not Mauritius, but he is Mauritian, Miguel Chan, who heads up wine for the Tsogo Sun Group. So all of those guests are going to be joining me in about 10 minutes time. But to kick off a little earlier today, because their time zone is troublesome when it comes to a wine show at this time of day, we went over to Sydney to meet up with a guy called Ross Anderson. Ross oversees the Global Fine Wine Challenge that puts together wine from the New World with a group of very established judges to decide who is the best in the New World in various categories. And overall, South Africa did particularly well, but I'll let Ross explain just how well. It is a slightly disheveled Dan. I've crawled out of bed some ungodly hour. Why would I do that? Because we've got a very special guest to bring into the show. And at our normal time, he is fast asleep because he is based over in Sydney. Ross Anderson from the Global Fine Wine Challenge is with us. Ross, welcome. Lovely to have you on the show now. What's a rather important week for you and your team? Awards are out. South Africans are smiling before we find out why. Give us a bit of an introduction. How does Ross fit into the world of wine, and what exactly are the Global Fine Wine Awards?
Hi, Dan. It's great to be with you, and thanks for allowing me to join your awesome show. We watch it judiciously from this side of the world, and it's an honor to be on the show. Yeah, wine has been the lifeblood. Supposed to be in the military aviation field, but I fell in love with wine back in 1996 in Somerset West, and it's been a career for the last 25 years. The Global Fine Wine Challenge is something I've been involved in since around about 2010. Where I was just a volunteer helper. I was living in Australia and missing the wines of home, and I had this opportunity to taste not only wine from home, but great wine from home. In fact, some of the best wines from home, alongside some of the best wines from Australia and New Zealand at the time. And obviously, a few years later, that merged to become something. It was started as the Tri-Nations Wine Challenge: Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. It became the Five Nations when Chile and Argentina joined. And a few years later, it became the Six Nations when America joined the fold. A bit of shuffling of the decks, and Argentina dropped out and was replaced by Canada. And we ran as the Six Nations Wine Challenge until this year, where we rebranded to the Global Fine Wine Challenge. So we can now plan for the future expansion. Hopefully, we'll see some great wines coming in from England. Who knows what China may bring in the future, possibly a composite from Japan, China, Lebanon, Uruguay, wherever they're making wines, if we can get them up to that fine wine standard. But the Global Fine Wine Challenge is basically, it's a fine wine benchmarking challenge. And it's different to a traditional wine show. In most of the entries that are coming in here have already done well in their domestic markets or have competed in international award shows and medaled and done so at the top level. And so it's kind of like the Olympics for wine, where the best of the best are on show and competing against each other. And we work closely with 5 judges, one from Canada, one from United States, Michael Frijon from South Africa, who's been involved since the inception in 2003, Ewan Hook from Australia, and Bob Campbell from New Zealand, also one of the judges from inception. But obviously this year was a bit tough with the COVID restrictions on travel. And we had to make use of 4 domestically located Sydney-based Masters of Wine. And 4 of the finest minds in the wine world you couldn't have found, who were also available. And so to get back to what is the Global Fine Wine Challenge, Andrew Caillard, who is the Master of Wine that was with us this year, one of the Masters of Wine, describes it best as the perfect Grand Prix event to celebrate, promote, and endorse the finest wines of the New World. So yeah, we're looking at a lineup where you are picking the McLarens and the Bugatti Veyrons out of the field of Ferraris. So it's a bit of fun that way.
It makes for some terrific wine. It makes for a very high level of competition, I'm sure. You have just announced the award. South Africa's done quite well, but set the scene for us overall. Who were the big winners and who was standing out in 2021?
We generally have a look at how the country's fared. For the first time in a couple of years, Australia has actually taken out the Nation of Show. But for the first time ever, and the best result on record, South Africa came second. New Zealand came third, followed by the United States, and then followed by Canada. South Africa generally sits in that 3rd position, sometimes in that 4th position. Sometimes they have a bit of a jump, but this is by far the strongest position South Africa has ever found themselves in 18 years. And I've got some information and notes here in front of me. So South Africa has picked up, well, first of all, set the scene. We have 20 classes of wine which are judged, from sparkling through a Riesling and Chardonnay, all the way through to your Merlots, Cabernets, Shirazes, Bordeaux blends, you name it. If it's a justifiable class, it's judged. So of those 20 classes, South Africa took out 5 trophies, a trophy being the top award in that class. New Zealand took out 6 of those. The United States took 4, Australia took 3, and Canada took 2. But the overall result is not judged on the trophy haul. It's judged on the scoring methodology which we use, which is unique. So the wines are judged using a preference system where the classes are broken down according to the number of wines in that class, and an allocated number is positioned into each class of how many medals are going to be handed out should the wines be good enough to justify the medals. So these numbers are ranked in preference. Your favorite wine or your best wine is given 1 point. Your second favorite is 2 points, 3 points. And so this goes all the way through every wine, and you get the sum total at the end, which determines your nation of show. But getting back to the amazing results of South Africa, we have a trophy winner for Coin Rock with their Black Series MCC 2014 sparkling. So they took out the sparkling award against some of the finest sparklings of the New World. We took Stark Condé Field Blend have taken out the White Blends Award, and this is the second time Stark Condé have won this award. Our friends David Nieuwoud over at Cederberg Cellars has taken out the 5 Gen Chenin Blanc. This is the non-aromatic white award. So big congratulations to David. David has his wines in Sydney and in Australia, actually. One of the surprises, and I'm delighted with this result, is that the beautiful wines of Le Riche Reserve Cabernet 18 took out the trophy. And if that's not good enough, they took out the second place for the 17 vintage of the same wine. So that's the first time we've ever had different vintages in 1 and 2 at the challenge. So that was a great result for Stellenbosch Cabernet. And then our good friends over at Takara, Stuart Glitter, took out the trophy for the Bordeaux blends with the Directors Reserve 2018. So big results for South Africa. And we're delighted with those. But it should also be mentioned while we're on it, the runner-up double gold, which is the second position, We've got Spear 21 Gables Shannon, just came second to the Cederberg. And one wine that I'm delighted with this result, I'm just going to drop that on the floor, that's not a good idea, is Tokozani Cabernet Franc, came second in the Cab Franc class, and this was a new class for 2021. And then another great result for Dimas Fontaine is the Carpe Diem Malbec, also came in second position. I've already shown you the second place Le Riche, and in the Bordeaux blends, this is a barrel labeled sample. This is Glenelly, Lady May 2017. So another big set of results for Stellenbosch, Bordeaux blends and Cabernets. So delighted with that, but a host of other results from the judging.
You can see on screen at the moment the website, which will take you over to the Global Fine Wine Challenge and do a bit more exploring. Loads of terrific South African results there. The Le Riche is fascinating. Great to see even more acclaim for Tokozani. Hasn't that been the fairy tale story of 2021 for South African wine? A great showing all around. Second, just behind Australia, and lots of great individual awards. In closing, Ross, what does that say about South African wine for an Australian market? I know you bring a bit of wine into the country. Are we starting to gain a foothold? Are Australians looking at South African wine as something to aspire to, something to really try and find?
Absolutely, Dan. We've been running the South African company, which is different to the Wine Challenge, is a company called Brave New World Wine. That's the retail arm, and New Force Trading Company is the import arm. In the last 2.5 years, we've seen demand grow exponentially year on year. We started with one container, which would last us 6 to 7 months. We're now doing 4 to 5 containers a year. We've got some great brands like Knonkorp and Meerlust, Cederberg, Le Riche, Vondelin, you name it, they're all in there. And we're starting to see this market here explore. Obviously, the target market is not necessarily the expat South Africans, it's the Australians and the Kiwis. And Australia is a multicultural mixing pot. And we're trying to push that fine wine message, that value for money message that South Africa brings to the world in everything that we do. So, yeah, I think there's an absolute demand in this part of the world, and it's growing.
If you're watching this in Australia, go and have a look at Brave New World wine brands like Delagraph, like Capensis and their creation, plus the wines already mentioned by Ross. Ross, I think we're going to need to have you back on the show early in the new year because there's a lot more to discuss. And hopefully by then we'll have all of those wines you just mentioned lined up and we can drink them again and celebrate with them. But well done. It's great to see the new world in such a spotlight and terrific wine from those territories being celebrated as they are. So thank you for that. Well done, South Africa, for having such a great presence. Look forward to having you on the show early in 2022. And until then, enjoy Christmas and have plenty of great South African wine along the way.
Thanks, Dan. Looking forward to it. My cellar's looking really good this Christmas. So hope you guys have a great time back at home, and we miss you, but hopefully you get over there to Cape Wine in October of next year.
There we go. Ross Anderson, the Global Fine Wine Challenge with South Africa, just about leading the charge. So there we go. That was from a little earlier on today. Big thank you to Ross, who insists he's from Somerset West. That is the worst Somerset West accent I've ever heard. But he's doing a terrific job in Sydney of supporting South African wine and showcasing New World wine to Australia and beyond. Our guests who join us today pick up on that very theme of South African wine doing particularly well. And it's quite a cosmopolitan group, though 3 of them find themselves in South Africa. They're from all over the world. Greg Sherwood, based over in London, where he is our unofficial First Minister of Wine. Wikus Human, the group sommelier from the Marvel Group. Tinashe Nyamudoka, the Zimbabwean wine superstar. And Miguel Chan, who is Mauritius's answer to probably Jancis Robinson and Keith Floyd thrown into one. Gentlemen, welcome. Lovely to have you all back on the show.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Let's head straight to London because we come out of Sydney and there's a real endorsement, Greg, through that Global Fine Wine Challenge of South African wine. Riche doing really well, Ara doing well, Tokozani doing well. Lots of great brands. What does it say for you about the South African wine performance in general in 2021 from a UK perspective? How have we done as South African wine?
Hi, Dan. Hope you can hear me all right. Lovely to be with you. And yeah, it's just basically what you've just heard. There's a summary of my day-to-day life in dealing with South African fine wine every day and why it's such an exciting category. We are really doing brilliantly. There is just never-ending kind of momentum that just nobody seems to know where it comes from, but I'd say it's just the goodwill and the great wines that are coming out of South Africa. And it's I don't think we should read too much into why it's happening. I think it's happening because we're a great bunch of people, a great industry in South Africa, making some incredibly good wines that are getting better and better every year. And not many industries around the world can say that their top wines are getting better every year, even though they're very good and they're getting even better. So it's fantastic to join you. It's been another difficult year. I've had no travel to a lot of wine regions, which has always been difficult. Luckily, we've had a couple of winemakers in a little kind of twilight period come and visit us in London. People like Ian Nordia popped in and a couple others. But it's been a difficult year for the industry back home. And we've obviously, like yourselves, done a great job on the kind of media side. And we've tried to do the best we can, certainly buying and selling and promoting the best of South Africa from our side, which is all we can really do. And people are welcome the top wines, open arms. They share them with their friends, and every time you sell one bottle, you get two friends phone you up and say they also want. And obviously, the top stuff is a little bit thin on the ground sometimes, but it's been a great year for the trade, and we've sold a lot of wine. And I'm very grateful to all the support from people like yourself, all the way through the industry, Joe Waring at Woza, all the wine journalists, people like Will Lyons at Sunday Times. A real unsung hero. We'll have to get him on the show one day. Such a fabulous guy. He really punts South Africa. Jancis is never ending. It's kind of endless list. We're very blessed here in London to get all the best wines. At the moment, sufficient amounts to spread thinly to all the thirsty clients, and it's a great category. So.
You've had another year of charging forward with celebrating South African wine, and I don't think there's anybody in the South African wine industry who isn't grateful for the work that you do as a single-handed force for good when it comes to South African wine. I'm fascinated to know what your best wines of 2021 will be. We're going to find those out a little later in the show. What I'd like to get from you now, Greg, though, is some of the surprises, some of the discoveries, some of the wine that maybe you weren't expecting to either be as good as it was or just weren't expecting to get at all. What's caught the eye in that sense of the great Greg Sherwood?
Yeah, look, it's been an interesting year. I'd say just as I've got some specific wines which I think have been quite eye-catching, which we'll come to later. But I think as an industry, we've always been very strong, and we've carved out very established roads with great Chenin Blancs, the old vine movements, some fantastic Syrahs and Shirazes, which get massive scores internationally and locally. Of course, Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch and the Bordeaux blends has seen a massive resurgence, certainly since 15, 16, 17, all these great vintages that we've had, which we're still selling 17s and getting the 18s now. So we've had some real, all the people who should be good are good and doing and getting better. But I'd say two kind of categories that have really stood out for me have been South African Chardonnays, which have seemed to find a sixth gear in 2021. Maybe just sometimes understanding that less is more. And of course, the other grape that saying certainly holds true, that less can be more, is Pinot Noir. And two difficult grapes, but I mean, to make great wine, two grapes that is probably not that difficult to make mediocre wine anywhere. But certainly to kind of rise to that next level, I think you need some real expertise, and certainly matching them to the terroir, which I think we're doing fantastically now. But one of the wines or projects which I need to mention, which I think has been one of the most exciting things I've been involved this year, has been the Doddy's blend from Skalkberger and Sons, which Skalkberger Senior and his importer Simon Halliday at Sporting Wine Club in London kind of asked me to collaborate with them for an incredibly important charitable affair. As you know, I appear most weeks, not today, but most weeks with my London Wells shirt on. It's, rugby is an incredibly important part of my life and a part of the whole kind of wine industry, actually, in the UK. So the Doddie's blend, which was an incredible kind of Bordeaux-based blend created for Doddy Weir and his charity, has been a really spectacular thing to be involved with. And when I got to review the wines and, no favors, I rated it genuinely at, 94 points. I thought it was a fantastic wine. And if you don't mind, I'm sitting here next to Simon Halliday, England rugby great, 23 caps, 2 Grand Slams, 1 World Cup. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just let him say a couple of words very quickly about Doddie's blend and the work that he's done with Skull Senior and Junior. And Simon, do you want to say a quick word to the South Africa?
Thank you very much. I know this is a bit of a surprise. I was just Greg told me he was doing this, and happened to be in the neighbourhood. And obviously the Doddie blend for us was a game-changing moment, really, at the Sporting Wine Club. Obviously, Skull Burger was our originating winemaker, really. Obviously, as an ex-international with his son too. So when My Name's Doddie Foundation approached us and said, "Look, we're still trying to raise money to combat motor neuron disease," and with Doddie, who I played against, a personal friend of mine, is out there trying to raise money and awareness. So we approached Skulk, and it was his great honour and privilege and pleasures, to put his own words into it, to mix a wine of some quality, as Greg has described. And in the teeth of a pandemic, when everything was shutting down, as you know, in South Africa, life was very tough in the wine industry. You couldn't get bottles, you couldn't get labels done, etc. But he did it. And he sent over 1,400 cases of the Doddie 5 grapes, coinciding with Doddie's shirt number, and an equivalent amount of money to pay away to the foundation. So it arrived in July. People were tracking the ship as it arrived. Got there just in time for the second test, the Lions test. And we've sold out over 2-3 months. And not just because the South African wine industry stepped up and created an amazing wine, but because of the cause. We all know Yus van der Westhuizen, amazing character who passed away from MND. So, for me, that was an amazing moment, and I think Skulk's very proud of the wine, and we've made some more to just arrived the other day, another 500 cases, and I called it an outpouring of alcoholic love for the man, for everything, and I think for us it was a wonderful moment. So I thank everyone in the South African wine industry that came together to make that happen, because it really was a joint effort. Skulk had a massive fire on his farm. I think the whole of Franschhoek turned out to help, and was obviously worried about the personal, any sort of personal injuries. Luckily nobody, but I was also a bit concerned that the wine that everyone had paid for over here might not get over here, but it did. So it's a wonderful story. Thank you for allowing me to share that. It's been a real amazing moment for us and for the wine business overall over here in the UK.
Thank you, Simon.
There we go. An unexpected but very welcome cameo from Simon Halliday. I sat next to him at a dinner in London once. My wine glass was very full for the duration of the entire evening, and something we've been chatting to Skull Burger about doing along with Velbeduct is a special on the show. So hopefully early next year we'll be able to get Simon back, talk about this wine in a little more detail, possibly if he's up to it, they get dirty in as well. But it's a great example of wine with a purpose, and that is something we've seen a lot more of over the course of 2021. We're going to get Greg's best of the year a little later, but let's move over to my second cousin, twice removed on my mother's side, my fellow Zimbabwean, Mr. Nyamudoka. Tinashe, welcome. Before I ask you about your pleasant surprises, your new discoveries for this year, tell us what you're doing, because every time I look on social media, there's a new strand to the Tinashe story, whether you're making your own wine, you're making wine at Bosch's, suddenly you're a brandy distiller. What's going on with the empire this week, Tinashe?
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone who's joining through. Yeah, I mean, I try to keep busy. I've been off the floor for a while, so dabbling between Kumusha wines, also filling in the late Alan Mullin's footsteps, blending some wines for Bosches, and a bit of consulting here and there, and enjoying brandy. So launching some brandy soon. And again, old man Luke said, we need to do this again. So I'm also busy working on the test kitchen carbon, which is coming soon in Johannesburg.
Always exciting times for Tinashe. He's one of the great trailblazers of our local wine industry. We'll get, as with everybody else's, your best wines of 2020 a little later. But tell me about some of your discoveries. What is taking you by surprise? What's been new and exciting for you this year in the wine world, Tinashe?
Yeah, it's good. I would love to jump on the South African wines doing pretty much well in the overseas market. And, I've seen it firsthand with my wines, especially in the US. The whole year I've been on calls with distributors from the States all over, and, the appreciation they have with South African wines, the quality they have, even though they feel we value for money, I'm trying to push that, okay, give us the money for the value as well. But yeah, I think I want to echo that our wines have been received pretty much very well, and we've seen growth as well. And in terms of wines that caught my attention this year, me and Spencer run Sommelier, where we're also finding these new discoveries. And in the year, we've put out quite a few offers, and some of the wines we've quite enjoyed. Yolandi's Wolfenman Rosé has been one of our favorite wines as well. Some Karatara Pinot Noir, we've enjoyed quite a lot of that. Fairies in the Garden, which is quite an interesting take of Gewürztraminer and Sauvignon Blanc. That was quite an interesting one and quite intriguing as well. And yeah, it's been here and there, some bubbles to pray from all the places in the Slangu Valley, but also showing elegance and good value as well. So yeah, above and all, I've enjoyed some great wines with great friends and colleagues.
And has there been for you, Tinashe, a theme to 2021? Has there been a particular grape, a particular wine story that you feel has really gained traction in the last year?
I just feel, because of the pandemic, there's not much people wanted to do in terms of creativity, but I just echo what Greg said earlier, that people really honing on what they're doing very best and really, even over delivering on the wines they've put. And I see the trend going on much more freshness and elegance more than power and finesse. Those are the wines I've been enjoying. And I think we're going to see quite a lot of them, people moving away from the heavy punching stuff.
The swings and roundabouts of the wine world. I think that is a very accurate synopsis of 2021. Let's get over to the Mauritian, who you should follow him on social media, not just for his wine knowledge, but the recipes. The man spends half his time cooking, and gee, does his food look amazing. Miguel Chan, how difficult has this year been for you? You manage dozens of wine lists for the Tsogo Sun hotels and restaurants right around the country. Has it been a bit of a juggle in 2021?
Indeed, Dan. Thanks for having me, and good to see you again and everyone else. What a roller coaster year, where it's been a show of opening and closing, and trying to move stocks from hotels that are closed and virtually redoing a wine list every week in many of our places where it is relatively busy. So there's time where obviously we try to be careful in terms of what we do, in terms of what we show, in terms of the wine list itself. And also what this pandemic have shown us is consumers are more receptive to aged white wines. A good example here would be Sauvignon Blanc, where we are at the end of 2021, where majority of the wine list by now would be showing 21 vintage. And because of the crisis, we're still selling a lot of 20s and 90s. And in previous years, we would have lots of pushback, but those days, it's good to see that our top wines from the top wineries, they hold very well in the bottles, and they showcase a different dimension of how to appreciate our white wines. Yeah.
I love hearing that. It's not a news story to be told on this show, but it's great to hear that our wine drinking public is starting to give Sauvignon Blanc in particular just a little more time. It can only benefit. What about the discoveries for this year? I know just how much wine touches down on your desk from around the country, people trying to squirrel their way on to a wine list or two of yours. What's been new, exciting, different, really made you sit up and take notice?
Look, then there has been a few, and what's been exciting this year has been, look, pre-pandemic, well, I'll probably taste over 2,000 wines in a year, either a trade tasting or regular visit to the Cape, and what I receive in the office. And what this last 18 months have shown is probably there has been close to 1,000 samples that arrive in the office, new vintages, new releases, and that have allowed me to stay in touch with what the industry is doing. And there has been a few gems around. And what I'm seeking and what I've discovered of late is wines that are of freshness or tightness, not those blousy, big, powerful wine, more food-friendly wines. I may shock everyone here, but I'll start with a rosé. And I reckon there's a solid transformation happening in the industry. Gone are the days of those very colorful rosé. We are seeing more the Provençal vin gris style. One that really struck me, which I believe is changing the style of rosé in the country in the years to come, is definitely a Pink Valley 21. Something unusual, 12% alcohol, bone dry, lean and racy. And it's something that's really shaking up the style of rosé in the country. The other stuff that I really like of late is the first Marcelin in the country. And obviously with climate change, we are seeing producers exploring new varieties. And it's great to see that there's 1 hectare of Marcelin, which is a cross of Cabernet and Grenache. And in Tulba Organic by Waverly Cellars, it sort of bridged the gap between the fullness of a Cabernet and the richness of a Syrah, but something on its own. And the other wines that I'm looking also is, we've talked about Chenin Blanc. Many of the commentators talk about Chenin and Chardonnay. I love racy Chardonnay. And one that comes to mind is the Mont Désir by Eikendal Vineyard. Beautiful Elgin Chardonnay, tight, lean, and it's beaming with energy and barely a touch of oak in it. The type of wine that really wakes you up. You know, you have one glass, it's almost like a beam of laser that crosses the palate. The other discovery is white blends. Look, it's kind of a tough sell on wine lists, but to see like the Amphora aged or fermented by Hamilton Russell, the Ashbourne, Semillon Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, the 20 vintage is showing a different dimension of what a white blend could be. Red, look, it's a tough call there. Greg mentioned about the Borders blend, the Cabernet of Stellenbosch. I agree wholeheartedly, and the Syrah. One Cabernet that really stood out for me is the Cabernet Reserve by Reineke 2017 vintage. For me, this is the best of Stellenbosch. You combine a bit of that plushness you get from Napa. It's just such an intense wine, yet it has so much freshness. And Syrah alone, where do we start? It's certainly the future of the industry. And myself, I never liked Syrah for many, many years. But what I've discovered in the last 2 years, we are leaning more towards the Northern Rhone. We are getting the savoriness, the tightness, the structure. And one Syrah that really stood out is the Iron from Mulliner 2019. If this is the direction our top-end producers are going, man, this is super exciting for South Africa, and super exciting for us some to be pouring those kind of juice. Yeah.
It's interesting that you don't only back up some of what Greg said earlier today, but also in talking about Syrah. That was one of the points Melu Lambert made on Monday night, that Syrah is for her our most exciting grape at the moment. What it does is reinforce just how diverse our wine offering is in South Africa, which makes the challenge for our sommeliers just a little greater, although it does offer such a wide range of wine, a range that people like Wikus Human has to try and distill down into a wine list and then get out to the numerous restaurants he oversees in the Marble Group. Wikus, lovely to have you back on the show. Give us a sense of what 2021 has been like for you, for the Marble Group, from a wine perspective.
Hi Dan, thanks for having me. Yeah, which is what a year. We came back and it was quite a bang. But I must say, things at Marble, Saint, and our new restaurant Zoo, things are going very well at the moment. Yeah, big year for myself as well, winning best sommelier in South Africa. something that I worked really hard for, and it eventually paid off. From the wine side, what I've seen is we see quite a bit of wines coming through Marble. It's not only me that tastes, but myself and my whole team. And we've seen that, I mean, these big kind of bolder wines are on the red side is kind of moving away. We see less oak being introduced into the wines, or lighter styles of oak, which makes much more fruit-driven wines. Wines that, as Miguel said, are much more food-friendly. And it's actually kind of difficult to get quite a big structured wine onto the table. It's something very heavy, quite full-bodied. On the white side, I would definitely agree with Greg. We see quite a bit of Chardonnay coming through, and as you said, less is more. We see much more of this kind of flintier, chalkier styles coming through. Much less oak is being introduced into Chardonnay, making these beautiful kind of citrus lime, almost Chablis kind of style and Burgundian-like wines in South Africa, even with the climatic challenges that we have currently. On rosé, I have to agree with Miguel as well. We definitely moving away from these kind of pink in the pool kind of style of rosés with lots of ice. We see much more of this Provence style of rosé coming through. I mean, I was always been a big fan of the Caron rosé, which gets held back for a few years and just shows what rosé can do in the bottle. But my I would say the rosé that really stunned me this year is the La Motte Vin de Juin. I really enjoyed it. I think for the price point it comes in, it's a very good example of what a French rosé can be, and how we work with it in South Africa.
It's a wine I think La Motte are going to have a great deal of success with, and you and I were at that launch together. It was a very, very good day indeed. In terms of the surprises for you, Wikus, what's changed? What's caught your attention? We'll get your best wines shortly, but what's been the new stuff that's really surprised you this year?
So I mean, working the floor of 3 restaurants, you see quite a bit going on, and as a sommelier, I've done many things on the floor. I mean, decanting old wines and old Super Ramlicantis and older vintages. But for the first day, the other day, I was asked to pour ginger ale with some red wine, and I've never done this before. As a sommelier, it was something new to me. Definitely, I've learned that it's called a kitty highball, and it's actually quite decent. I would definitely recommend it for anyone who's sitting at home. Want to have a nice refresher, some ice. I wouldn't say don't use your most expensive red wine, but a great Pinot Noir would work. And you can top that up with some ginger ale, and what a cocktail it seems to be. But yeah, what I say, I mean, wines that are definitely stunned me is Stellenbosch Cabs. Once again, Star Conde that won the Field Blend now. Their normal Cabernet Sauvignon for me, the 2018 vintage that's come across here at Marble. Such a nice and rounded wine. What we've also done at Marble is we started to pull some of the older vintages out of the storage, which is great because we can see basically what older whites are doing, giving Sauvignon Blanc some time in the bottle, giving Chenin Blanc and Chardonnay some time in the bottle, really makes a big difference. And that's what we try and do with Marble Saint and Zoo is definitely try and give that offering of an older vintage on the list. And I think with the last few years with the pandemic and so on, it's not great for us, and everyone's been closed and it's not been as busy, but also holding back wines and story wines that we bought before the pandemic is a little bit kind of I would say almost like a blessing in disguise that we couldn't touch those wines, and now we're picking the fruit.
And the reward is there to be had. Wikus will sort you out very happily with the wine they have at Marble at Saint at Zoo. And he'll give you his recommendations, which is exactly what we're going to get now across the board from our 4 guests. Grant Sauls is watching at the moment. Looking forward to the final show. Stellar lineup as always, Dan. I'm going to be broke after these recommendations. Love it. Well, let's get the recommendations. Gentlemen, you have 3 minutes each because I have a pick and pay dinner with JC LaRue to host online on the dot of 6 o'clock. So we need to be done before then. If I can ask you, kicking us off, Greg, back in London, give us just a handful of wines. For you, these are your picks of 2021, the very best of the best.
Hi, Dan. Thank you. Look, we know we do Chenin well, we do Syrah well, we do Cabernet well. But, one of the highlights for me on the white wines this year, not just because he's a good mate and he's had a very tough day with the 2 of his children, his 2 dogs, which have had to be put down through illness. But Ian Nordier's Colombard 2020 and 2021. These are real game changers. There's only a handful of people producing top Colombards in South Africa. Ian bottled the first old vine Colombard certified, and it's I went out on a whim, gave it a big score, 95 plus, and thankfully it was reaffirmed by Platter and it got 5 stars. So that's a real game changer. We could be, well, he feels we are with Colombard where we were with maybe Cinsault a couple, a decade or more ago. So that's a very exciting. Watch this space with Cinsault. Again, feeding into a bit of my kind of new things that have always been good, but maybe never reaching their potential, but kind of getting there. Restless River 19 Chardonnay. I mean, just Craig is a very clever guy. He doesn't rest on his laurels. He wants to make better wines. He will find a way to make better wines. And I think in the 19, very highly rated, highly lauded. I think he's the glass ceiling is cracking this, so watch out for that. Another, yes, a good friend, but it's somebody who, Duncan Savage, who he is the white wine master, but, we love his Sauvignons and Semillons and Subsems, but when he puts his hand to Chenin, boy, oh boy. And unfortunately, for the last couple of years, we've not had his single vineyard Paul Chenin, but this year, the 2020, we got a new edition of his Never Been Asked to Dance. Absolutely fantastic, massive scores, all from Tim Atkin, Martin, everyone. Fantastic Chenin, Old Vine, Paul Chenin. And then I certainly couldn't end without just one classic. And this last week, we got the Neil Martin Venice report wrapping up the new releases. And chapeau to Breverots and his Emma de Compostela 2018, 97 points, which is massive for Neil. Higher even than these 96 for the 08, which certainly the comparison is made in stylistically for the 18 and the 8, a little decade in between. But yeah, that is just incredible. And the wine is just, absolutely flying, if anyone even has any. And then I'd just like to give an honorable mention to my last category that I alluded to, the Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs. I would certainly like to pick out a couple of names who are helping to break that glass ceiling of quality. Caroline and JC at Creation, doing some incredible wines. Chris and Andrea at Malino with their Helderberg Vieux-Passant Chardonnay. And obviously their Cinsaults are fantastic, but specifically, it's about breaking ceilings, glass ceilings, and just getting to the next level. Hannah Storm, I know he drinks a lot of Grand Cru Burgundy, but it's certainly helping him make some great Pinot Noir in the Hill-Lenard, and the tension and precision on those wines has been very, very impressive. And then, probably last but not least, one of my favorite winemakers and a good friend, Peter Allen Benison, wine trade blue blood, but certainly, he doesn't rest on his laurels either. And, congratulations on being named, in the Tim Atkins winemaker of the year. And just, from start to finish, from basic wines to top cuvées, every wine is just exceptional. I love his cinema. I love the whole bunch. Maybe he'll do a reprise in the future years, but yeah, just incredible wines from his clay shell Chardonnays to his Pinots. So it's kind of, Stellenbosch cabs and border blends. They're doing great things, but it's great to see everyone upping their game, and I'm so pleased, and it gives me more ammunition in my armory. So congratulations to all those guys.
A pretty comprehensive selection there from Greg Sherwood. Write those down and then go and see your bank manager, because you buy all of that wine if you can get it. You're not going to get off lightly, but gee, it will be a reward worth investing in. So that is a Greg's picks, and nice to see a couple of the wines from Monday coming through again, including the Restless River, and talk of some of those Syrahs. No word of Mr. Sadi, but then you don't really need to mention him, do you? Let's go over to Tinashe. Tinashe, your 2021, what have been the rock stars on your list?
Yeah, man, for me, 2021, I spent a lot of time in the Brede Kloof, mostly in the Slangoek Valley, and I got to taste the best of what's coming from out there. And I'd have to give a shout out of Elisma from Olifantsberg. I think they're making fantastic wines. The Olifants Blanc is a fantastic wine, the Syrah as well. And my mate from Opstal Wines, Ati, always over delivering on the Opstal Carliverson Chenin Blanc. Obviously, the Opstal Red doing well. And down the road, there's Bexic, old Divet, making, Rieslings, which are not the norm as the Elgin ones, but quite much more floral, very fruity, and deep reds as well, playing around with Toruga and some Portuguese varietals. But I have to say, of the wines I drank in 2021, for me, the standouts have to be probably with the setting I drank them with. First of all, was one of the wine I enjoyed with my wine tasting group in Johannesburg, the Magnetic North 2013 vintage, lovely Chenin Blanc from the Skoofberg. And in my opinion, I think Chris is making the best out of that region as well. And like Greg mentioned earlier, he had the 2018. I opened 2 bottles of the 2013 MR this year. Fantastic. And for me, it's one of those wines which you feel is in the right drinking window. And I'm tempted to finish whatever is left there. And of course, surprise for me was my second vintage of the red I did, which is the Kumusha 2018, which is now my missus' favorite. It was my second red. I never loved it when I produced it, but it's totally changed in the 3 years now, and it's become my favorite in the house as well.
The Emma de Compostela getting some more attention, and I'm very pleased you bring up the Breda Clough, because although its reputation has grown considerably, I still get the sense that it's a bit of a hidden secret when you combine the quality of the wine and not just the Chenin, for which they are celebrated, and I think very deservedly so, but even beyond that, some of Elizabeth Syrah mentioned there, the Breda Clough is home to some extraordinary wine. All right, Miguel, what got the Mauritian stamp of approval for this past year?
Dan, it's one thing I'm looking those days is drinkability, and there has been a few. Let's start with 2 beautiful Cape Classic. One from the maestro, one of the maestro of MCC, JP Coleman, his Blanc de Blanc Chardonnay, predominantly Elgin and Franschhoek fruit, and a bit of Robertson fruit. A beautiful, bright, lean, perfect way to kickstart a dinner. And the other Cape Classic that I've discovered recently, boutique winery in Elgin, known as Iden. Albert Rousset, he makes beautiful Cape Classic Pinot Noir driven, about 30 months on lease. It's called L'Intemporel, which is quite unusual to see those French names popping up again on our labels. And Chardonnay, I've mentioned earlier about the Eikendal. Another one that really strikes here, it's the Bannock Reserve from Del Aircraft 2019 vintage. I love the tightness here. And 2 wines from David Never. One would be his Chenin Blanc 5th generation 2019, naturally fermented, super food friendly, beautiful structure. And the other one is his natural or wild ferment Gascona Sauvignon Blanc. And Sauvignon Blanc itself, when it's natural ferment and seeing a touch of wood, it just brings another dimension to it. And on the subject of a touch of oak on Sauvignon Blanc, I've recently tasted the Constancia Royale, perhaps one of the unsung wineries of Constancia Valley. They make a wooded version, which is known as the Don Reserve, 1600 bottle, very much like a Grave style, beautiful integration of the wood. It's not Pirezini. It's one of the subtle, elegant white wine where it simply begs one of a glass. Something from Mr. Chenin, although he's known for his Chenin Blanc Ken Forester, but I'm not referring to any of his Chenin today. I'll refer to a Cinsault, an all-vine Pekingese Kloof Cinsault. He made 2 barrels called the Misfit, 2020 vintage, natural ferment. It's not verging on funkiness, but it is a very interesting wine, lots of character and lots of grit in it. It's one of those wines that can get one super excited about what he does in terms of his red. Other wine that I would recommend today is something highly drinkable, especially now we are entering our hottest month of the year, is a Barbera from Darling made by Tristan Barnard. Here at 11.5 alcohol, you wouldn't say it's green, you wouldn't say it's unripe. It's just something that is
That is the challenge of asking this particular question when it comes to South African wine, because it's been another year where so much great stuff has come out. You mentioned Ken Forrester. I really enjoyed his Bridge, that collaboration he has with the Napa Valley. It's almost feels slightly old school in how big and weighty it is. But gee, it's a good drink. Okay, last one then before we wrap up and I nip over to join Pick and Pay and the JC LaRue team. If you're part of that dinner, I'll look forward to seeing you there. Wikus, give us your picks. What are the South African sommelier of the year's favorite wines for 2021?
Well, Dan, I'm going to start off with probably some of my favorite bubbles. Something that really stood out for me this year, and we spoke a little bit about Shiraz earlier, was the Genevieve Rosé. So when she made it, the first time I tasted it, I picked it up to the nose and I was like, there's a bit of spice on here, a bit of pepper on here. And I looked over, I think it was David from Exanimo, and I said, is this made from 100% Shiraz? And that was quite intriguing bubbly, still classified as a brut with the sugar, I think, sitting around 6.9. So it just falls beautifully into that brut category. Then another bubbly that really impressed me was from John Lobsher, the Silverthorn, the River Dragon. So bubbly made from 100% Coolanbard, 38-year-old vineyards, I think, which was also fantastic, something different. On the white wine side, I know Greg highlighted Peter Allen, but yeah, I think just definitely the new Ferrum Chardonnay that he produced this year was something extraordinary. And I was lucky enough to get the new vintage of Agnes, the 2021, which was basically released, I think, next week or maybe this week. But that's something that really also I've tasted, and it's once again less is more. It's that beautiful kind of chalky, citrusy lime notes. On the red side, I really enjoyed the new release from Damascene, their Syrahs, the Cab, the Moyamika Pinot. The 2020 is really a wine that stood out for me. Very, very good red wine. And then, as I mentioned, that Star Conde Cab. But we've been opening so much old vintages here at Marble. We had some older Felimas. It's been great. We've had some older Felima Merlot, which has also been great. Some older Takaras. I can ramble on and on, but definitely some good wines that we've opened. And yeah, I've called someone close here, maybe just to give his take on some of the best wines he's had this year. So Dan,
Johnny,
David Higgs.
But I just saw Wikus sitting in the corner, and I just thought I have to just add that my love for older South African wine this year has definitely come to the fore. Myself and Vic have been privileged to open some incredible cab from Pelima, some older stuff from that whole Stellenbosch Heidelberg Valley or Heidelberg area. Yeah, I think we agree that that's probably been the highlight for me this year. So, bit of useless information. Sorry for intruding, but yeah, just more praise for South African wine, and especially the older stuff.
There we go. Older wine from an older chef. It's a great parallel and a great combination. And Wikus there touching on Coolanbard. It's been a great year from Coolanbard. Ian Nadir's 5-star, as Greg mentioned earlier. Silverthorn doing 100% bubbles from Coolanbard. There's just so much that's happening in South African wine that's cool, that's exciting, that's interesting, and that's keeping us smiling despite the challenges of the wine world, in particular, the broader world in general. Gentlemen, this is where I say goodbye, not just to all of you, but also to everybody who's been watching, supporting, and joining us over the course of 2021. It's our last live show. We'll be back second week of January as we look ahead to what's going to be big in 2021. But for now, Tinashe, Miguel, Wikus, Greg, and by extension, Simon and David, thank you all very much for being part of the show. Thank you to Ross from the Fine Wine Challenge from earlier on. Have a wonderful Christmas. Keep supporting South African wine. And I genuinely mean it to all four of you. You're part of this extraordinary wine community we have who keeps South African wine going. So thank you for that. Keep up the terrific work and look forward to a glass with all of you very, very soon.
All the best, Dan.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks so much.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Dan.
everyone watching. Thanks.
Happy
Cheers.
days.
So there we go. Tinashe Nyamudoka from Kumusha Wines, also making wine down at Bosches. Also there, Wikus Human Group sommelier at the Marble Group and the reigning South African sommelier of the year. Miguel Chan, the Mauritian who oversees all of Tsogo Sun's wine, as well as Greg Sherwood, master of wine in London and a great, great supporter of South African wine, with a guest appearance of Simon Halliday from the Sporting Wine Club and David Higgs with a few thoughts on some older South African wine. Plus, Ross Anderson earlier on in the show, the Global Fine Wine Challenge. And that brings us to an end because I've got exactly 2 minutes before I jump on to my next wine show, which I shall be doing with the guys from Pick and Pay and JC Leroux for a very special dinner. Thank you for all your support. I see Hein Wagner, what an informative and just awesome showdown. Cheers to the continued success for 2022. And Reginald Peckmeyer, who I think is, together with Grant Sauls, been our supporter of the year. Great to have Dave joining Wikus, our superstars of 2021. Keep up, guys. Have a wonderful Christmas break. Keep drinking and supporting South African wine. There will be recorded episodes coming out through until the new year. But for our live shows, thanks for your support in 2021. We'll see you back in 2022 for more fantastic South African wine. Goodbye.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to know that wine is on the way. Which it is if you have the Pick and Pay ASAP app, which will change your life. Not only will it get all your groceries to you without having to leave home, but it will also get wine to you, including some of the best deals Pick and Pay has coming up with the Pick and Pay Wine Club. Delivery right to your door, so you don't need to worry about the time getting down to the shops. It's a wonderful addition to the Pick and Pay offering. So too is this. This is a great summer wine, and here's my final promise. Buy this and I won't sing to you anymore. Happy Christmas. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.